It's actually a great time to create startups, and that's core of like our business idea as well. That hey, you don't actually need to know all of these like technical skills that could take you years to acquire and learn, but you could just kind of have this idea or have this kind of unrelated skill set to software and even do like a software startup.
Welcome to First Block, a Notion series where founders from the world's leading companies tell us what it was like to navigate the many firsts of their journey and what they learned from that experience. Our guest today is Fabian Hedin, co-founder and CTO of Lovable.
Welcome everyone to First Block, where we explore and dig into breakout startups. And we have a doozy today. I might say we have a lovable doozy. My name is Fazi Shahi. I support the engineering team at Notion as their CTO. And I'm really excited to be hosting and talking with Fabian Hedin. Did I say that right?
That's right.
Excellent. I won't make you say my last name. It'll take forever. First of all, I want to welcome you and also congratulate you on going from 1 million to 100 million in like 8 months. I had a similar experience about 20 years ago where I went from 1 to 100, but it was 1,000 in revenue to 100,000 revenue. And I was thrilled. So I can't imagine how, it's just mind-boggling going from 1 million to 100. So congratulations on that. I was wondering if you could take a step back and before the 100 million, before the million, before you became Lovable, I know that you coded when you were in high school. I think that's when you started. You had multiple startups before that. Was it a straight path and sort of like success after success? Or was it like, what was the journey like? What were the events to leading up to meeting with Anton and starting Lovable?
I started coding a bit before high school, I guess. It was Minecraft pulling me into it in the beginning. So I was running this server and, you want to mod it, you want to change the experience, and then you have to create a website for it, and you have to figure out what is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you get into programming that way, at least for me. And after that, in high school, I started building more kind of games on my own, and that quite quickly turned into someone hearing like, oh, this guy programs. I have this thing I want to build. Let me ask him. So I started building actual like business applications quite early in high school, and that was more my introduction to starting to build like SaaS products. So I did that a few times, and then after a while, I was like, this is a bit boring, doing this for like other people and their ideas and so on. And I wanted to do something that I would be like a longer term stakeholder in and really do something myself. So I teamed up with one of my friends and classmates, and we right after high school on the summer, we started this kind of SaaS real estate startup. And so that's I guess my first startup other than the Minecraft server. After high school, I moved to Stockholm, the biggest city, the capital of Sweden, and I went to the Royal Institute of Technology, and there I started meeting more like-minded people, and one of those people actually introduced me to Anton then, and I had recently exited my real estate startup at that point, and it wasn't like this super big exit, but it was enough for me to not be super worried about like, oh, I gotta find a new job or whatever. And so I wasn't really looking for anything, but it's always nice talking with people in the space. So I met with Anton and his then co-founder, and I ended up joining their startup, which was this YC startup called The Pict that was based out in Stockholm. So Anton was my boss. He was the CTO of that startup. And I was there for 10 months. And I'm proud to say that's my longest employment to date. And after 10 months, I chose to quit because I wanted to do my own thing again. But then one day, Anton called me up. I think it was a Saturday morning, and he was calling me, waking me up, and like, oh, hey, do you want to go take a walk together? And I was like, no, not really. But he's like, oh, I'm outside. Like, let's go for a walk. And he asked me, do you know what GPT engineer is? So this was the summer of 2023. And Anton, as a side project, had created this kind of CLI for creating software.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I was like, should I? It was a few days old at that point, so I don't feel too bad for not knowing it. But we got to talking about what this thing could become, and can we build a company around this essentially? And it was very clear to me, and this is something I've been thinking about for a while as well, of like, oh, hey, what can you do with AI? So this was like GPT-3 and GPT-4 territory. And it was very clear that, like, okay, there's something that's going to happen here.
Was it just the two of you at the time?
Yeah. No.
Transitioning from that to where you are now, at what point did you know that it seems like you knew pretty early on that this is more than a project, but at what point were you like, okay, this is for real?
So it was always real to me in my head, right? I think I knew from the beginning that like this thing can really become something, or it is going to become a big thing. And for a while for us, it was a lot about kind of finding the way to approach it. So I think a lot of people back then, for example, Cursor, you apply it to and GitHub Copilot as well, right? You apply it to improve developers, which is like this very iterative, very logical thing to do. And I was never really that interested in doing that, and I more wanted to enable people to go 0 to 1 as fully non-technical. And I would say that's the harder problem. And we were a bit early on that. So I think we had some doubt, like there in the early days of, will this actually work? Is the foundational models good enough for this use case? And they weren't really, but you could do basic prototypes. And then I think in November, so now just about over 8 months ago, right, is when we launched Lovable. And that's when things really started to take off. So then it became real, not just in my head.
Was that when you actually changed the name to Lovable from GPT engineer, which is quite catchy, I must say, but Lovable sounds better. How did you end up on Lovable as the name?
Actually, changing the name was a big internal debate.
I could imagine.
And I was actually a proponent for keeping GPT engineer for a long time. I liked it, and you kind of get attached to names. But the company name was actually Lovable since the start.
Oh, I see. So the company name was Lovable, so it just took on the name.
So we had this idea of like, first off, I think Lovable is just like a nice name, but it also like comes with this idea of that. Before in kind of how you're building software, you do some designs, maybe low fidelity, then higher fidelity, and you build this MVP, minimum viable product, and then you throw that away and you build the real thing. And we're thinking like, all right, you apply AI to this now, you can just build the real thing, and we can call that the minimum lovable product, and therefore Lovable.
Anything in the early days you feel like you should have done different, like any learnings for founders who are listening that you think you could have done differently that would have set you up better?
One thing would actually be launching earlier. So we were very early in the space, and I think maybe the first, I at least didn't know of any other people kind of building this type of chat and preview interface before we did it. But we weren't the first to go and do a general launch of it, and I think that was a mistake. In hindsight, we were basically behind a wait list for too long.
I do remember Ivan and Simon, founders of Notion, basically a year ago saying to me, "You got to check out Lovable," and going on there and checking it out. So whatever you did actually worked, and people took notice for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as you started scaling, and obviously, from 1 million to 100 million, it takes a different type of leadership. You mentioned how you're here for a long time.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you have to hire chiefs of this, chiefs of that. Like, how do you actually stay hands-on? You mentioned you wake up 4 a.m. while you're out here. Tell me more about how you run the business and how you're able to, like, on a day-to-day basis, how you're able to run the business. How do you not become a meeting CTO, if you will?
Yeah. First off, I try to say no to all meetings, and then people have to convince me to actually join the meeting. So that's a great way.
Let me take a note for that.
Yeah.
I gotta do that here.
And also, when you actually do a meeting, try to keep them very short. I've heard Ivan is a big backer of that.
Ivan,
as well.
I can't sit down with him for dinner more than half an hour. He wants to eat. I'm like,
yeah. So I mean, for me, I love building product, and I think even. This might be a thing for, I think, a lot of kind of technical founders, that you start very close to the product and the engineering, and then you have to kind of step back a bit, at least from the very like ground level things. And that has definitely been a bit of a transition, but I'm still very much involved with the day-to-day on both high and low. But it's you gotta choose a bit more where to spend the time.
and I'm curious, how do you divide your time between you and Anton? You mentioned how he was a CTO of his company as well. Obviously, he's very technical. And like, how do you decide who does what and like not step on each other's toes?
So we kind of just looked at the org chart and said like, all right, I'll take kind of engineering, product, and design, and you'll take the rest. And I had someone ask me when I told them this, like, oh, so you're the technical one. I'm like, no, we're both kind of technical, and I think we kind of overlap a bit and look on both sides as well. So the split isn't that clear, but that's the general direction of us.
Very cool. And would you say your basically your engineering org is flat, or like how do you manage the team? Like, do you have a lot of managers? 70 people or so in the company?
Yeah, exactly. So the base idea in how I want to build a company, and especially engineering as well, is to keep it very flat and just have this kind of ideas floating around and let the best idea win and do that thing. And I think that's something we're at the size, so we're around like 40 engineers, and I think that still works really well for us.
Right. And then I'm curious, as you're scaling, what are the you're reinventing basically how people develop software through natural language. What are the processes that like traditional companies use, like OKRs and like roadmap and things that you're like, we don't need that? What are the things that you've actually adopted?
Well, I do think you kind of use a lot of the things that have been defined before you, but I think this whole new technology with foundational models, it changes the rules, and I feel like we're definitely part of like figuring out, okay, what are the new rules? And it's often about just these base ideas of, oh hey, maybe you don't need to be this many people, or maybe writing a product requirement doc. Maybe you don't have to do that, because actually just building the prototype, you can do that very cheaply and very quickly.
Yeah. One of the things that I love is that I work on a product that I use every day and all day, and I get to like basically dog food it and try it out before our customers do. How do you do that at Lovable? Do you ask the team to actually create their own apps? Like, tell me more about, like, is there a dog food process? Are you constantly building new apps on Lovable?
Yes, very much so, and it's almost a problem because it's a bit addicting when you get started. I think right before the flight over here to San Francisco, I stayed up a bit too late one night because I was like building this Office CRM in Lovable, and so that's a really big thing for us to be kind of the first customer of of our product, and a lot that we use it for is kind of these internal tooling. So we don't have any traditional kind of ERP type software. We just build it with Lovable.
That's very cool. And what are, as you're, I'm sure you see a lot of products that are built on Lovable. What are some that you feel like, oh my God, I cannot believe someone built that on Lovable? Any of your favorites or complex ones?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the interesting ones are actually quite simple, like the ones that go viral. So there was one that like takes some picture and does video editing on it locally in your browser, and that went like absolutely viral. And I was at one of our colleagues' like birthday party the other day, and then a guy comes up to me and he starts talking about this very like intricate like SaaS that he's building, and I thought he was just building it for like the company he was working at. It was around like figuring out based on how much square footage, like how much floor tiling and everything you need, like a construction business. But no, it was actually like doing this as a side project, like taking the things he was learning and like selling this business and making, quite decent money on it. So I think that's a really cool thing that's happening with a lot of people, especially with some industry knowledge, kind of just applying that now, and all of a sudden they can just do it themselves.
Very cool. Do you see a world, maybe a year or 2 years down the line, where someone will build Lovable off of Lovable? I know that sounds weird, like you have little Lovable children.
Yeah, I mean, I do that every now and then. I do that definitely. And yeah, I would say it's just a matter of time before like a lot of the things we're building now become trivial to build.
Yeah,
no.
Very cool. And one of the quotes that I read about, and it's you said you hit your head against the wall until it worked. Can you tell us more about that? Like what were you working on, and what exactly were you referring to?
So that was really about the beginning of, we were choosing and debating, me and Anton, a lot on like, okay, what's our customer and what's our product? And I would say on the product side of things, we were very much thinking about, hey, should we do something like in one vertical, maybe only build landing pages, or only build landing pages for restaurants, or these type of ideas, right? Or we do what we ended up doing, which is just build something very broad. And I'm very happy we did the latter of building something broad.
As your like Lovable is doing more of like using natural language to produce all these like softwares, I'm curious, what does production ready mean to you?
Yeah, so I think especially early on, and this is actively changing, but AI is really good at creating new things. And the thing with software is that the more complex and the larger the code base becomes, the harder it is to change, and like the complexity of adding or even just maintaining it increases. So it's a very like central thing that we're focused on just this, like, okay, once you've created it, how can you keep on adding to it and keep on improving it? And taking it to production is, the first version is quite easy, but then like you have a database and you need to do migrations on top of that. And I think that's a factor of kind of where foundational models are today. But I think a lot of people are kind of underestimating even what it can do today, especially if you've been coding for a long time and you're like, oh no, I have to do this myself. Like, do you really? Like, try doing it first by taking a step back.
And do you see a world where, I know you mentioned earlier how you're really targeting the 99% who don't code as much, but do you see yourself like moving either those people who don't know how to code to become better coders, like pick up stuff, or do you gravitate more towards like people who can code?
So the idea with Lovable is really to abstract these technical choices so that you maybe, like the example I gave before of someone working in construction, like they should be thinking about construction, and choosing a database and like choosing underlying tech stack is something I think Lovable should handle for you. And also something that we're actively kind of making sure that we encode into the AI to make sure that it actually does good technical choices from the start.
So eventually people don't have to worry about the signing up for Supabase or something like that. You're going to take care of that for them.
Exactly,
goal.
exactly. Do you know our roadmap? Like, have you?
I watch your videos.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Or you just have very good intuition. Yeah.
That's very cool. I actually love that. Give us a preview of like how you're working with you mentioned how you were working with the Notion team on like with MCP server. What should builders expect to come?
So I think Lovable plus Notion is a very interesting combo, because Notion is the place where a lot of people spend a lot of their time and kind of dumping context. And then Lovable is this place where you can create software and create apps. And a lot of the time, the limiting factor to do that is the context. And that's true for a lot of different AI tooling. So Notion and Lovable is a very match made in heaven, in that sense that you can actually just leverage all of this context to start creating stuff.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to the partnership and see what the teams do together. Has it become harder to like than 5 years ago, 10 years ago, to build a startup? Is it harder, easier?
I do think it's actually a great time to create startups, and that's core of like our business idea as well. That hey, you don't actually need to know all of these like technical skills that could take you years to acquire and learn, but you could just kind of have this idea or have this kind of unrelated skill set to software and even do like a software startup. And then I think us is also like an example of hey, you can actually kind of leverage the power of the foundational models and do something that creates a lot of value.
All right, we'll close where we always do with First Block with advice. Okay, and I'm going to ask you two questions.
All right.
Imagine you're speaking directly to the next generation of founders. What's one building block of advice you'd leave behind for early stage founders?
One thing that I think we did incorrectly at Lovable, at part of our journey at least, is to try to build a bit too much for the future. So we were building this very complex agent before agents really worked, and we were like, oh, it's going to work with GPT-5, don't worry. That was a big mistake. And in hindsight, I think really just looking at like, okay, hey, this is the value that we can create today with foundational models. There's a lot on the table still in a lot of different verticals. So I would really say to a founder today, like, hey, just figure out what you can do with these models and what use cases you can serve today. Don't think too much about the future. Like we have a steam engine here ready to go. Just apply it.
I love that. There's a lot of emphasis in this, in all the talk that you've done about speed and like moving as fast as possible, and also meeting with satisfying use cases. I love that.
Yeah.
The second question and my last question: if you had to rebuild Lovable from scratch today, what's the first block you'd start with?
Oh, well, that's easy. I would just use Lovable.
Okay. Great.